The Fantastic Beasts film series is officially on hold. Originally planned as 5 movies, only 3 were released, and it seems there are no active plans to make any more. So I thought now would be a good time to watch all 3 to see if they hang together as a coherent story with a beginning, middle and end. First, Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them from 2016. This is by far the most fun of the trilogy, an action-packed romp with a likeable group of characters, with plenty of cuddly monsters for the kids, and enough darker themes to keep the adult viewers interested as well. Eddie Redmayne is an engaging hero as Newt Scamander, a bumbling Englishman in New York with a TARDIS-like briefcase full of magical creatures. Catherine Waterston as Tina is the female lead. It's not a great part. She and Newt have a friendship that threatens to become a romance, but never quite gets there. Maybe they were saving that development for the 4th or 5th movie. The really emotional heart of the movie is Jacob, played by Dan Fogler, and Queenie, played by Alison Sudol. Their characters have a really sweet, tentative romance going on, complicated by the fact that it's forbidden as he is non-magical. And the final shot of the movie belongs to them rather than Newt, which feels just about right. The production design is superb, bringing 1926 New York to life with some massive sets, and the magical realm also looks impressive, though those areas are more obviously augmented with CGI. And the menagerie inside Newt's briefcase is a theme park ride waiting to happen, full of impressive creatures of all shapes and sizes. There are perhaps a few too many scenes of magical creatures running riot in the real world. Kids will love them, but older viewers will find their antics a bit repetitive. On the villain side, Colin Farrell gives a strong performance as the main antagonist, clearly evil but not remotely over the top. Samantha Morton makes the most of her screen time as the anti-witch campaigner Mary Lou Barebone, and Ezra Miller as her tortured son Credence is a key player in the whole trilogy, although it does seem that his story is over at the end of this movie. The themes of tension between witches and non-magical people are much more foregrounded here than in any of the Harry Potter movies, and they make it feel a lot more realistic than any of them. You really get a sense of the two worlds living side by side, and it feels like war could break out at any moment. Overall, great family adventure, 7.5 out of 10. 2 years later, in 2018, we got Fantastic Beasts: The Crimes of Grindelwald. This is a much darker movie right from the start. The scene of Grindelwald escaping is practically in black and white, and the rest of the movie is similarly lacking in colour. There are still some of these familiar creatures from the first movie, but they only make small appearances and are very much superfluous to the plot. Grindelwald's rise to power is definitely the main storyline here, but despite the title, he doesn't really do that many crimes. He spends most of the movie just recruiting followers. Johnny Depp's performance is not one of his best. He seems to be putting in a minimal amount of effort when he should be the most charismatic person on screen. We also get Jude Law making his debut as Dumbledore. He's only in a few scenes, but he still manages to make an impression. He's every bit as likeable as his older self would be in the Harry Potter movies, but with a more youthful energy. And it's hard to shake the feeling that he should have been the hero of this series from the start. But Eddie Redmayne is still the lead, and he continues to be winningly quirky as Newt. His relationship with Tina barely makes any progress, as she spends most of the movie mistakenly believing him to be engaged. Jacob and Queenie's relationship was the highlight of the first movie, but here that is completely subverted. He starts off being ensorcelled by her, and she ends up joining Grindelwald purely because of the restriction against marrying non-magical people, although that only applies in America, and there's nothing to stop them getting married in England or France. Zoe Kravitz as Little Lestrange is a new addition, and she takes up a great deal of screen time as her complex family history is unravelled throughout the movie. There is a lovely flashback to her meeting Newt at Hogwarts, which brings back fond memories of the Harry Potter films, though it's clearly gratuitous fan service. Towards the end, she narrates a ridiculously convoluted flashback sequence involving switching babies on the Titanic, which might have worked in print, but really stops the movie stone dead. The whole movie is full of unnecessary subplots and superfluous characters, such as Credence's girlfriend Nagini, who is clearly just there as an Easter egg to foreshadow her later appearance as Voldemort's pet snake. And the big action climax is just a mess, with the good guys battling against a wave of blue fire, while all the villains escape to fight another day. Overall, a messy, overcomplicated, fun-lacking sequel, 4 out of 10. Finally, in 2022, we got Fantastic Beasts: The Secrets of Dumbledore. This is the last in what we can now call a trilogy, and unfortunately it doubles down on everything that spoiled the second movie, making it by far the lowest point of the series. It's even darker than the second film. Many sequences are completely incomprehensible, including the opening, which sets up the whole story, and it ends with many plot threads left unresolved. Dumbledore and Grindelwald are clearly the main characters now. The movie begins with them meeting as friends and ends with them dueling as enemies. Jude has much more screen time than before, as you might expect from the title, though the only secret he reveals is that his brother had an illegitimate son, which might have been shocking 100 years ago, but not so much nowadays. Mads Mikkelsen takes over as Grindelwald with no explanation. He's much better than Johnny Depp in the role, but that's not saying much. He's played so many villains now, he can basically do it in his sleep. And his performance here is not that much different to that in Doctor Strange. Newt is very much in the background now, though he is present throughout. Tina only shows up in the final scene, so once more their relationship fails to progress. Queenie is on Grindelwald's side for much of the film, even though he openly wants to kill all non-magical people, which is the opposite to what she signed up for. But she does get a happy ending with Jacob at the end, so that much is resolved at least. In Tina's absence, Jessica Williams steps in as Lally Hicks, another American aura, though at least she doesn't take over the will they won't they romance with Newt. Instead she recruits Jacob, for no apparent reason other than that he's still a main character. And Newt's brother Theseus also steps up, though he doesn't really have much of a personality. All in all, it's a much less appealing gang than the original four in the first film. The Muggle world is barely featured in this movie, focused as it is on the internal affairs of wizards. There are a few scenes in Berlin, but it could be any old city really, and it's much less impressive than the Paris scenes in Part 2. Still, Bhutan is a decent setting for the ending, giving it a very different look and feel than any other scenes in the series. Presumably if they had made movies 4 and 5, we would have seen what magical South America and Africa are like. But given J.K. Rowling's rather stereotypical depiction of non-white characters, it's probably a good thing that we never got to see that. Grindelwald's entire plot revolves around capturing and subverting the Chillin, which can sniff out the pure of heart and is used to choose the supreme ruler of all wizards. This feels like an insane electoral system and leads to them proclaiming a convicted criminal as their leader, which would have seemed ridiculous if not for recent events in America. Now it seems very prescient. Once Newt exposes Grindelwald for his true self, there is a big magical fight between Dumbledore and Grindelwald, which takes place in a bizarre slow-motion shadow realm and was obviously put together in green screen. It makes for a very anticlimactic ending to the trilogy. Grindelwald is technically defeated, but he escapes to do more evil in future installments, which we will now never see. Perhaps J.K. Rowling could write the final confrontation between Dumbledore and Grindelwald in book form, as that seems to be the medium that she is the most comfortable with. Arguably, she should have written the entire series as books first, then got an experienced screenwriter to adapt them, which would have made for a much more satisfying experience. Overall, a very poor final instalment, 2 out of 10. So, thanks for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it more than I enjoyed watching these movies. I'm sure I'll tackle another series of movies somewhere down the line, so press subscribe to see more of this sort of thing, and I'll see you next time.